Okay friends, I am really excited about our project today because we are going to be trying something new. And I am not 100% sure that it's going to work. So we're going to try it. At the very least, it's going to be a good time. So what we're going to try to do today is we are going to make wallpaper for my daughter's room using Cricut Smart Vinyl. We're going to do a couple things in this video that I think you're really going to be excited about. We are going to talk about making large-scale projects and how to measure those out and how to create them in Cricut Design Space. We're going to talk about layering adhesive vinyl. We're also going to talk about Smart Vinyl, which is Cricut's brand of vinyl that is specifically to be cut without a mat, which is really nice. And we're also going to talk about the difference between removable vinyl and permanent vinyl and when to use each one. So I'm actually using a mixture of both for this project today, and we'll talk about that a little later on. But I think it's going to be a really fun project. We're going to make a floral themed design that's a little bit coquette for my daughter's bedroom, and we are going to see how it goes. This is certainly a large-scale project to be pumping out on the Cricut Joy Xtra, but we're going to try and do it, and we're going to just be along for the journey together. Typically, I would do something like this on my Cricut Maker, but I've been loving my Cricut Joy Xtra lately, and I thought it would be fun to try it out on the Xtra and see if it can handle a project of this scale. So we're gonna try it out. We're gonna push it to the limit today. It's gonna be a ton of fun, and you're gonna learn a lot, so stick with it, and let's get into our supply list. Okay, so for such a large-scale project, we actually don't need that many materials. We were using Smart Vinyl today, so we don't technically need a mat. We'll get to that in a minute. You might want a Cricut mat anyway, just depending on what kind of machine you're cutting on and what kind of Smart Vinyl you have. But you don't technically need a mat for this project at all. And you don't need a weeding hook because we're actually gonna be just peeling this like a sticker. So because of that, the supplies you need are vinyl and a Cricut machine. You're probably also gonna need a measuring tape of some kind if you are doing it large scale like me, so you know what size your wall is and how many times to repeat the pattern in Cricut Design Space. But other than that, those are literally the only items you need for this project. Let's take a brief second though and talk about what kind of vinyl I'm using today. So I am using all Smart Vinyl for this project, and I'll show you what colors I have, and then we'll kind of talk about the different kinds of Smart Vinyl because that can be a bit confusing. Smart Vinyl comes in a variety of sizes depending on what kind of Cricut machine you're using. And if you're like me and you're working with the Cricut Joy Xtra, there aren't as many colors available for the Cricut Joy Xtra just yet because it's such a new machine. So what I would recommend if you're working with the Xtra is to choose Cricut Maker Smart Vinyl because you can cut it down to the correct size and still cut Matless on the Joy Xtra. So a couple of the colors I'm using today are big Cricut sized. They are the 13 inches by 3 feet, and that's in the maize yellow and the green. So I'm going to be using those today. Both are removable, so they'll be easy to peel off of the wall if we don't like it. If you're doing a project on a wall like me and you're not sure if you're going to love it, definitely go with the removable vinyl. It still stays up for a really good amount of time. It's just a little easier to peel off when you're ready to. We are also going to be doing some with permanent Smart Vinyl just so I can show you the difference in how it actually adheres to the wall. Both are great options. I'm pretty sure I want this to stay on the wall for a good long time, so I'm great with using permanent, but I got a couple removable vinyls just so you could see how easy they do peel off the wall in case you're interested in that. And the rest of the Smart Vinyl I have is made for the Cricut Joy. So because these are smaller than the width of my machine, I'm gonna have to cut them on a mat because they're not wide enough to fit under both guiding brackets on the Cricut Joy Xtra. But again, there's not a ton of color options available yet for the Cricut Joy Xtra. And I wanted to show you guys what the Cricut Joy Smart Vinyl looks like because it's a little smaller. And there's plenty of color options available. So you may decide that like that's a trade-off you're willing to do and you just cut on a mat, which is what we'll be doing today for our smaller vinyl rolls. So in our smaller ones, which are also our permanent rolls, we're going to be using red. We're going to be using powder blue, which this is also part of the reason why I got the Cricut Joy colors is because they have these really cute pastels that are harder to find in the bigger rolls. And I was like, I will cut on a mat just to be able to use these pastel colors because I love them. So we're using powder blue. Each of these rolls, by the way, are 5.5 inches by 48 inches. And then we are using the color Tulip, which is a very soft, light pink. So in total today, we're using green, maize yellow, tulip, powder blue, and red. So that's all the colors we're using for today's project. Again, I'm going to show you how I set up my file in Cricut Design Space here in just a minute. You can use whatever colors you want, and you can change that in Cricut Design Space. And if you decide on a different design, because I'm going to show you how I created this design, you may not end up even needing this many colors. So play it by ear, stick with me. Let's head into the Cricut Design Space portion, and I'll show you how to set up your file. And that's going to help you understand a lot better where we're headed with this massive scale project. So let's go ahead and hop over to Cricut Design Space, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space. I do want to show you how I set up my files. So I'm going to go to my stuff up here because I did save this project, and I will publish it to Cricut Design Space. So if you want to just steal my files, go right ahead. They are yours to use. I called it Hallie Wall. I will rename it something much better before I make it public, but I am using all files that are available with Cricut Access. So if you have Cricut Access, you'll be able to make this project completely for free. No need to buy extra SVG cut files. We're going to click on it and click Customize. So this is what we're going for. And as you can see, this is large scale. We're going to be using a ton of vinyl today. We're using these cute little tulip bouquets and these cute little bows in between just to make it a little bit coquette and create a wallpaper effect on Hallie's wall that is actually vinyl. Also, I have a friend with me today, a new friend who you might want to be introduced to. This is our newest happy crafter. Her name is Dolly. So I just want you to know, if you hear any noises, you are hearing Dolly, who is hanging out with me today. So we're here in Cricut Design Space. We have all these little tulips and we have our little bows in between to make it a little coquette. The way I set up this file is I knew I was cutting on my Cricut Joy Xtra, so I knew that I didn't want any of my flowers to be giant because then we'd have to piece each flower together individually. I knew I wanted the total flower to be able to fit on the Cricut Joy Xtra. So each individual flower is only about 3.5 inches by 5.75 inches. So they're pretty small individually, but this wall that we're cutting on is not so small. So let me show you how I did that. What I did is I went up to Hallie's room and I measured the size of the wall in inches, and then I created a square in Cricut Design Space that was that big. So I created a square that I knew was the right size. I'm gonna send it to the back here. So this little square represents, or rectangle I guess, represents Hallie's wall. And then what I did is I went into images and I knew I wanted to do tulips, so I searched tulip. And I also knew that I didn't want it to be print then cut because I'm cutting it out with vinyl. And I also wanted it to be more than one layer because I knew I wanted the stem and the actual flower part to be different colors. So knowing both of those things, I could filter my options here a little bit on the left-hand side by operation type to cut only and by layers to multi. And when I did that, I all of a sudden got a ton of better options. I also knew I wanted like a couple of different kinds of tulips. So I wanted to kind of look for some that looked like they could be in a set together or that could look similar. So doing that, I kind of searched through and I was like, oh, that one looks good. So I clicked on that one. And then I was kind of coming through. I liked that one. I think I picked that one from the start. This one. And I just started picking any that I thought might look good in a group together. And you can select multiple tulips. As you can see, they're all down here in my little section ready to go in my canvas. You don't have to select them one at a time. And I went ahead and selected any that I thought might be a good option. So I think I did this one and this one. And then what I did is I just added them all to my canvas. And I started playing with colors and size and spacing. And I just kind of, I'm gonna go ahead and delete these because as you can see, we've already done that part. I started working with each individual one to kind of create a grouping that I liked. And once I did that, I was able to go in and change the colors and create like a cohesive little set. And I did that twice. So I created this first grouping that you see here. And then I created this second grouping that you see right here because I wanted a little bit of variety. But all that was me pulling in images from Cricut Design Space that I already liked, changing the colors, and then arranging them how I liked. So once I did that, I had something on my screen that kind of looked like this. And once I had this, all this is 3 different tulips. So this is one right here. And I made it that yellow color and that green color. And then I made sure to use the same green color for every stem. And I changed these petals to be complementary colors. I knew I kind of wanted yellow, red, and a light blue. And then I just arranged them how I wanted them. So they kind of looked like a loose bouquet. And I made this one set the size that I wanted it to be. So I knew in my head, looking at Hallie's wall, that I wanted it to be less than a foot wide. So I knew I kind of wanted it to be like eyeballing, like about, you know, so-so. And I was just gonna see what the height turned out to be when I set it to about 11. So I did that, and then I duplicated it for as many times as her wall was wide. I knew I wanted it to be kind of spaced out at this point. Like, I didn't want them to be all right up on each other. So this is where your rectangle is really gonna come in handy, because what you can do is you can look at the wall and envision that that's what the wall is actually gonna look like. And when I did that with my little grouping, I said, well, it's probably gonna be about 5 of them. Like, looking at the size of this, I think about 5. So I set it out as 5, and then I repeated that process with this second row, which was a little bit different, knowing I wanted them to be off center from each other. And then I just duplicated those 2 rows for the entire height of the wall. So at that point, all the flowers were done. Easy peasy. You can do this with any grouping, any arrangement. You could do snails, you can do peaches, you can do cherries, you can do whatever you want on your wall, and just visualize the actual wall by using this kind of square rectangle effect here. And then I just wanted to fill the empty space with something. So I tried polka dots and I didn't like it. And then I tried bows, which I found again in the images section. And I loved it. I thought it was so cute. So all I did was just fill the empty spaces with bows. And now that I've done that, this is ready to cut. We don't need to do anything else. We're gonna assemble it on the wall, so we can just let the Cricut go ahead and cut it. The only thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to toggle the visibility on my rectangle, because we do not want the Cricut to try to cut out a rectangle that is multiple feet wide by high. We have what we need. This is what our wall's gonna look like, allegedly. And we are ready to go ahead and make it on our Cricut. So I know this process can seem really daunting, but if you measure your wall that you're wanting to work with, all it is creating that rectangle that's the right size, and then just placing visually your design how you want it to look on the wall. There's really not even any math involved. I don't have to divide out how wide the wall is, because I can literally see it on Cricut Design Space. So it's just a matter of placing it how I want it to look, and also knowing what your individual flowers or your individual elements are going to be size-wise to make sure your machine can actually cut it. I know that the smallest thing that needs to be cut by my Cricut, the smallest like whole element, is a flower. So all I had to do was make sure each flower wasn't too big to be cut by my Cricut, and then the rest is a piece of cake. So once we've done that, we are ready to hit make it. It is that simple. It may take a minute to sort your project because it's so many pieces, but now we're gonna go through and decide what's gonna be cut on a mat and what's gonna be cut off of a mat. So all of my pieces here that are this smaller smart material need to be cut on a mat because they're not wide enough to fit under the guide marks of my Cricut Joy Xtra. So my blue, red, and pink will all be cut on a mat, and then my yellow and green can be cut without a mat because I can actually cut these down to size to fit between my guiding brackets, and we'll be able to cut matless for these. I do want to make a quick commentary on working with smart materials because I usually don't cut with smart materials. I tend to like cutting with StarCraft adhesive vinyl a little better than Cricut brand, and it's also a little bit cheaper. But there are times when splurging for smart materials is really worth it. And one of those times is when you are cutting a really long design or you're cutting a repeat of a design many, many times. So that's why this project is great to use smart materials. Because, for instance, let's look on our screen here. I am cutting 239 almost inches of green material. I'd be swapping out my Cricut mat so many times it would be absurd. So opting for smart materials is great for a project like this because I will be able to feed this into my Cricut machine and just press go. Never change the mat, and it will cut all 239 inches of this design. And it's gonna save me so much time in the long run. So that's why for the yellow and the green particularly, because those are what we're using the most of today, I opted for smart materials that I knew I could cut matless on my Cricut Joy Xtra because I do not wanna be swapping the mat out that many times. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and hop over to Cricut Design Space here, and we're gonna select to cut on the mat for our pink as well as our red and our blue. Our yellow and our green are going to remain matless. And we also need to keep in mind that nothing needs to be mirrored for this project because we're working with adhesive vinyl, not heat transfer vinyl. So once we've got that set to go, we can go ahead and click continue. I'm going to open up my machine here. Now it's time to select our materials. This is really easy because we're using Cricut brand materials. So I'm just going to go to browse all materials. I'm going to select Smart Vinyl in the search bar here. And we are using, it doesn't matter whether you pick permanent or removable, the cut settings are virtually the same. So even though today we're using a mixture of permanent and removable just to show you how it works, I'm just gonna select permanent for everything I'm cutting today. I'm gonna make sure to bookmark that setting so it's easy to find later. Once you've selected that, do be sure to select the checkbox to remember material settings. That just allows us to not have to reselect our material with every separate cut that we're doing today. And we are going to be doing quite a few of them. So definitely toggle that checkbox. It's just going to save you a little bit of headache on the back end. And once we've done that, we are ready to get our material on our mat since we're starting with pink here. And then we are ready to get cutting. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to edit my mats that I'm cutting on the mat because I just realized these materials are only 5.5 inches in width because they're made for the smaller Cricut Joy, and it thinks our material is much bigger, so it's got our width here extending beyond 5.5 inches. So I'm going to go back and edit that really quick by clicking cancel. So I'm going to move these down to make sure we have enough space. It's not letting me select the right size here. So I'm going to move these to another mat, which you might not have known you can even do. So what you can do is you can actually go to your mat that has too much on it. Like this whole row or column here has to go because this is all surpassing the 5.5 inches in width. So what you can do is click on the item you want to move, click the 3 ellipses and select Move Object, and you can select the mat you want to move it to. You can move it on down. So we're just going to move these one by one to the correct mat. Just a little fun fact for you that you can do that. We are literally butting these right up next to each other. I think that does it. So now we're within our 5.5 inches. I'm gonna go double check because our red is in the same boat. Yeah, we got a problem. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that for this as well. We may end up having to add another mat of red. We'll have to see kind of how that all shakes out here because this is just not going to work. I'm gonna get all my little tiny tulips over here. I'm still not gonna have space to deal with those larger ones. So what I'm gonna do, I will show you here in just a moment. You can also move multiple at a time, by the way. I don't know why I'm not doing that. That would definitely be saving me some time here. We're gonna just bring these in as tight as we can possibly fit them because we do wanna stay within 5.5. That one's good. And then what we're gonna do is we wanna move all of these, but we don't even have another red mat available to move them to. So we're gonna hit the 3 ellipses, hit Move Object, and select a new mat to move them to that is one of our current colors. It's still a red mat, so we let it know, and it's that easy. It went ahead and put it on another mat for us. So that's perfect. So red is good, pink is good. Let's go check out blue. There we are again with our same problem. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move these guys. Okay, that is good. And then this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut it on a whole other mat. We're just not even gonna have to deal with this issue again. So we're gonna hit 3 ellipses, Move Object, New Mat, Blue. Now we are ready to cut. So I'm gonna go back to continue. We're gonna reselect our Smart Vinyl option. There we go. We're gonna make sure to toggle on Remember Material Settings. It's telling us we wanna use our fine point blade. It's in the clamp and ready to go. And we're starting with a matte cut. So let me get out my Cricut mat. I'm gonna go ahead and hop off the computer portion of this because we're done with that part. I'm gonna move that to the side. We will meet back right here and let's load up our mats and start this immense cutting process. Okay, so we're ready to start cutting. There's just one last step we need to do to make sure this is set up correctly. And that is we need to cut our larger vinyl that we're gonna be cutting off the mat down to size, which is not ideal. If I was cutting with my Cricut Maker, I wouldn't even have to do this step, but I'm really interested to push the Cricut Joy Xtra to the max here. So we're gonna take the extra time, and some of you might be using a Cricut Joy Xtra, so I want you to see how you would do this. So you can still utilize matless cutting, but with material that's actually too large. A Cricut Joy Xtra mat is the max width that you're allowed to cut with for matless cutting. So we're actually going to line it up on our vinyl here, where the edge is matching. I'm gonna grab a little pen Once you have it lined up, draw your little straight edge and just run that straight edge literally all the way the length of your vinyl. This is just going to provide a guide for us to cut with. If you have like an extended length straight edge cutter, that would work too. I don't have one though, so we're going to do this the analog way. Once we have that, we're just going to take our scissors and we're just going to follow the line. You do really want to take your time with this and be precise, because if you go too wide on the line or you go too far in on the line, it won't be able to be guided under the guide marks on your Cricut Joy Xtra, and it won't be able to be cut matless. So definitely take your time on this part. Make sure you're lined up, make sure you're staying straight as you possibly can. There is a little bit of room for error here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you really, really want to stay on that line, even though it takes a little bit of extra time when it comes to doing the actual cutting. And then we're just going to repeat that process with all of our colors that we are matless cutting today. So let's do that, and then we'll come back and we'll actually cut all of our colors. Okay, we've done the fun part. We have cut our larger matless vinyl down to size for our Cricut Joy Xtra, and we are now ready to cut everything. So we're gonna start with our pink layers. It looks like we're gonna have two. These are the ones we are cutting on the mat because they're actually smaller than what they're supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and line it up here, making sure that my vinyl is what starts my numerical guide and not just the backing paper here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this down to size. Technically, I could just leave the roll hanging off the end, but I just think that makes it a little more challenging. So I'm gonna just press this down really good here. Make sure we don't have anything coming up. And then one thing I love about the Cricut Joy Xtra is we don't actually have to press like a load or unload button. We're just gonna guide our mat here underneath. So we're gonna go ahead and unload. Whenever we peel our vinyl away from our mat, we usually wanna flip it over, but this is barely stuck to it. So we're just gonna pull it right off. Now we're going to cut our other layer of pink, again, making sure that we are lined up with the actual vinyl, not with the like little edge here that is incredibly deceiving, because that is not vinyl. The backing extends beyond the width of the actual material. Not a fan of that, but that's okay. I really need to clean this Cricut mat. It is like barely sticky, but we ain't got time today. So we're just gonna hope for the best. So I'm just really pressing this down. Then we're gonna feed her through. So normally this is the step where we would weed this, but we're actually not gonna weed it. We're going to just take it upstairs to Hallie's room, just like it is, and peel it off like a sticker. So I'm just gonna stack up this pink layer here that has already been cut, set it off to the side. We are ready to cut our red layer now. I'm just double checking my width because we really only have it says it's 5.5 inches wide, but because the backing extends, it's really 5.5 inches with the backing. It's really only about 5 inches of actual vinyl. Because we really only have about 5 inches to work with, I'm gonna go create a fourth mat of red to cut here, just to play it safe. So I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay, so now we're ready to cut our red. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay out my first set here. I kind of like cutting with the Cricut Joy vinyl just because like it's so small and easy to work with. I'm gonna try to squeegee down this vinyl this time just to hopefully get an extra bit of stick. Okay, so we have 4 mats of red that we're gonna cut right now. Then we're gonna cut our blue, and then we're gonna go to our larger matless cutting with our yellow and our green that is gonna be way easier than this. I'm gonna step out for a minute. I'm gonna let this cut, and I'll let you enjoy the vibes. Okay, I think you get the idea on the cutting on the mat. So I'm going to go away for a little bit. I'm gonna come back when we're on to our matless cutting section. I'm going to, off camera, finish cutting these matte sections, which is our pink, red, and blue vinyl. And then I'll come back when it's time to do our matless cutting. See you in a second. Surprise, outfit change. I realized that doing these long cuts and applying it to the wall was gonna take way too much time for what I had the other day. So it's a new day. Let's get these long cuts cut and let's get this up on the wall and finish this project up. I'm really excited to see how it turns out, but this is like part 2, but you're getting it all in one video. I already cut this really long piece down to size. It is 12 feet long, and we're gonna have to do 2 of these and another 36 inches of our yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and get this loaded in and let this start cutting. And while this is cutting, I'm gonna go cut the other 12-foot piece of green down to size. We have really undertaken a lot for our little Cricut Joy Xtra, so I'm excited to see this project wrap up today. I'm gonna take it and we're just gonna roll it up. It's ready to load. Fingers crossed here. Let's load it correctly and straight. It's measuring all 12 feet to make sure we have enough. Few little creases here and there, but shouldn't be an issue. Okay, let's press go. All right, we're gonna cross all our fingers and toes this works. I'm gonna let you hang out with it while I go cut the other piece. I've cut my other green one. I'm gonna hop off here for a second and let you take a little break because this is gonna take a really long time. Although cutting this 12 feet didn't take near as long as I thought, but I'm gonna wrap up cutting and then I'm gonna come back and we're going to apply this to the wall. Okay, all of our layers are officially cut. We have all this vinyl now to go put up on the wall. So we've done the hard part. Now let's go do the fun part. I'll see you upstairs. Okay, this is our wall. First, I'm gonna take everything off of it, move the bed, and then we're gonna get to applying. The canvas is prepared. It's time. I'm gonna do 1 row of green and then I'm going to hop off, finish up all the green, and then we'll come back color by color because this is gonna take a minute. Okay, we've actually got 2 rows of green done. You can only see this one because there's not enough space. But I've done 2 rows of green. I'm gonna pause here, finish the rest of the green, and then I'll come back and we will put these flowers on. Okay, the green is done. Now let's get some color on this wall. Let's do all the yellow. I'll start you off with me and then I'll do the same thing as before. I'll jump off camera, finish the yellow, and then we'll do 1 color at a time, but the hard part is done. Now we just have to do adding the flowers. Look at all this green. Okay, I'm gonna finish the yellow, then I'll be right back. Okay, yellow's done. Let's do some red. Okay, I'm gonna head out and I'll come back when the red is done and it's time to start the blue. Quick check-in though on the removable versus permanent vinyl debate. I have eggshell paint on my wall and I will just go ahead and say that I think it's pretty much the same with eggshell paint. Like I've been trying to peel them off and put them back on just to see how they do. And they're really similar. I think if you have eggshell paint like I do, you can go either way. If you have more of like a chalkboard paint that you're putting this on or like a flat paint, it's probably gonna make a little more of a difference. But with a paint like this that's a little bit textured, these are really easily being replaced when I mess it up. So good to know. Okay, we've got the red up on the wall. Somehow I like missed a few at the bottom. I'm gonna have to go recut those, but we're gonna ignore that for now. Let's place some blue. Somehow I'm missing 1 blue flower, but let's get the bows on and then we'll go from there. Okay, bow's done. Let's go cut the pieces we missed. She's done. Let's take a look. Okay, we did it. We did the whole wall of Hallie's room. It is done. It is finished. It was a lot, but it was 100% worth it. I'm already thinking, what can I do home decor wise next with my Cricut Joy Xtra? We definitely pushed it to the limit today and had it do a lot of heavy lifting for us, but again, I think it turned out amazing. Totally worth it. I hope you loved this project. Make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing, because I will be doing more Cricut Joy Xtra projects in the future. And I'll be doing more Cricut Maker projects and even some Glowforge projects coming up. You're not gonna wanna miss them because now I have the home decor bug and I have to know what to make next. So let me know in the comments what you think I should make next. If you wanna follow me elsewhere, I do post different stuff on my other social media. You can follow me at It's Laura Lambert everywhere on social media. It's all the same. I would love for you to shoot me a DM and reach out and let me know what you're crafting and what you're making lately. So bye for now from me and Dolly. I hope you loved today's project. Hope you had tons of fun, and I will see you again next week. But until then, happy crafting.